are sometimes surprised that Boeing even has a history organization. People sometimes wonder what in the world do those people do. People are surprised that we have paid historians on staff. Why? For those reasons I mentioned earlier, right? We value very much where we came from. We honor the people who have all worked for us in all of those heritage companies down through the years. Every single person has contributed to some extent, and we want to make sure that we capture that, again, here in the present, so they can go forward into the future. So we have archives at several different sites around the Boeing Company, including here in St. Louis. And in these archives, we keep engineering documents, drawings, correspondence, papers, maps, these photographs, motion pictures, film negatives and video, any kind of advertising that we've done throughout the years in the past up to today, documentary materials, selected management bulletins, organizational charts, similar media, different kinds of actual artifacts, and models. So we don't keep everything. It would be impossible to keep everything. And if we kept everything, I mean, the archive would probably be bigger than the shop floor. Okay, so it's really more a question of what are the key important pieces from these different eras that capture the story of the company as a whole, okay, or specific products, or specific programs, or specific people, okay, and we try to capture that in all these different kinds of items that we have in our archives. We also have the historical library, okay, summaries of individual products and programs, historical data on even our competitors all through the past. And some of our competitors were ourselves in our past, right? Our fellow heritage companies. Non-current motion picture films and videos, from those eras, from those times, right? Because an artifact by itself, as neat as it is, only has true meaning when you understand it in the context of the time that it first existed, right? So, for example, we have badges from McDonald, from the McDonald Company, from the 1940s, the 1950s. Now, just to look at a badge from the 1950s, just by itself, has more meaning when you understand, well, what was the 1950s about? What was life in the 1950s about, right? So some of these movies kind of capture that. Selected photographic prints, negatives, and drawings. Some key books and periodicals. Descriptions of significant events in the company's history and key technological breakthroughs that took place throughout the history of our heritage companies. Official correspondence of Boeing officers, our CEOs. We have a collection of oral history. It's very important to capture everything we can. Part of that is capturing people's histories. That helps capture kind of the context of what we have. Okay, and also employee newspapers and periodicals. McDonald had the old Air Scoop newsletter. Okay, the McDonnell Douglas Spirit newsletter. Okay, we have just about every copy of both those periodicals that were produced throughout the years. The History Office is also responsible for education and outreach. They field a lot of questions in terms of historical requests. We have a history website. We're going to pull that up after we finish here with the slides. We have a brief history of the Boeing Company, which is this book right here. So you're all welcome to take a copy home this evening, and for those who run out, we'll make sure that we have additional copies as well. We have monographs on different historical topics of, again, key company events that took place. The History Office prepares a monthly column in our Boeing Frontiers magazine, monthly magazine that the company produces. Educational programs for middle school students. So there's These two videos are an example of that. The Mystery Flight and Adventures in Space are educational videos that are used in our program here in St. Louis. And of course, activities centering around our anniversary here in 2016. So we also have exhibits. I mentioned the prologue room. That's that top picture. There's some other. The prologue room is actually the largest, I'll call it, museum type facility that we have as part of the company itself, right? That's on the company facility. But we also have some other exhibits as well at some of the other Boeing sites. And you'll find these items, all their flight garments, flight hardware, lots of models of all these different types, parts catalogs, technical hardware, they're all there. The prologue room is open to the public in the summer months, free of charge. And it's also, we also have tours for groups during the rest of the year that can be made by appointment, by calling the main number. So here's just a list of things that have been prepared specifically for our 100th anniversary this year. First up here is Your Story is Our Story. So I just got done saying that hearing people's stories, understanding people's stories, capturing people's stories is very important in terms of understanding our history, capturing the context of what had happened. So again, when I finish the slides here, we're going to pull up our website, and Your Story is Our Story is an opportunity for you, anyone who's had any association with the Boeing Company, any of our heritage companies whatsoever, to tell their story, whatever that may be. Maybe somebody you knew that worked there, or you flew on one of our airplanes, whatever it happens to be. We'll show you that here in a moment. Boeing Archives presents video series, so there are kind of special videos that the archives have prepared that are available for you to view. Again, we'll show you that on our website. Frontiers articles in our magazine. Above and Beyond is a traveling exhibit that's making its way around different museums in the United States. Right now it's at the St. Louis Science Center through May 8th. So I invite you to look into that at the St. Louis Science Center. At the Boeing store, there's a heritage collection, centennial heritage collection. Okay, so the Boeing store in St. Louis is located at the corner of McDonald Boulevard and Lindbergh Boulevard. Okay, and then we sell all kinds of different Boeing-themed items in there, but there is a section of things that are more centered towards our heritage in the centennial. Okay. We did enter into a partnership with Aviation Week magazine, where every issue of Aviation Week has been scanned, okay, and is available for viewing. We have select products in Boeing history that we've either chosen to do some brief snippets on, or to feature within the Boeing store. For example, one of the Centennial Heritage Collection items is the 707, right? Other one's the B-17 items that you can purchase there. There's also a Boeing history chronology on our website that goes into, obviously, a lot more detail than what I'm talking about tonight. And it mirrors a lot of what's in the brief history book. And then different things that our site is planning on doing as well. Okay, this is the last slide here. So one of the site activities that we're planning on doing, we've gotten preliminary approval to do this, so now we're working the details, and we'll go back for approval after that, is to honor the original prime crew of Gemini IX. Okay, so that original prime crew is in the photographs, the two gentlemen that are seated at the table. Right, so this is Elliot C., Charles Bassett. Those two gentlemen, as Dan had indicated earlier, on February 28, 1966, flew here to St. Louis from Houston to view the progress of production on their Gemini capsule, which was being built here in St. Louis. also to partake in some training. McDonnell also built trainers for the program, did some of that training up here as well. When they arrived in St. Louis, the weather was bad. And unfortunately, the aircraft that Mr. C and Mr. Bassett were in were kind of caught in the weather, in the clouds, and they crashed into one of the McDonnell buildings. Lost their lives. So they gave their lives, sacrificed for their country, for the space program. As a result of this, the backup crew, who you see standing in the background, Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan, became the prime crew. Now here's an interesting bit of trivia, historical trivia for you to consider. When they had to do that reassignment, making Stafford and Cernan the prime crew, that also reshuffled all of the other assignments, okay, on the manifest for Gemini missions afterwards. Okay, so as a result, the Gemini 12 crew, which was the last Gemini crew, okay, ended up being Buzz Aldrin and Jim Lovell. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Jim Lovell was the commander, and Buzz Aldrin was the pilot for that mission, which meant that they were also the backup crew for, I think it's like 3 or 4 missions before that. I can't remember the exact sequence. Had this not happened, Buzz Aldrin would not have had a Gemini mission. He would have not flown a Gemini mission. Why is that significant? Because the ability to get a slot on an Apollo mission pretty much depended upon flying experience on a Gemini mission. So had this not happened, Buzz Aldrin probably wouldn't have gotten an Apollo slot. Potentially. Potentially. We don't know that. But the odds are that that would have been the case. Who was Buzz Aldrin? Second guy to walk on the moon. On that first mission, to land on the moon. So that's just a little bit of interesting trivia related to how this affected history. What happens in the present obviously affects the future, right? So what we're wanting to do here, well, let me back up. So Gemini 9 ended up being a successful mission. Okay, it was one of the first missions that was responsible for doing docking, attempting docking in space. That piece of it didn't work too well. You see in this picture here, the Agena target vehicle still had the shroud attached to it. So when they approached it, you could see that we can't dock with this because the launch shroud is still there, right? So, still, it was still a success. Okay, I think George is in the room. Where's George at? Want to tell us briefly kind of your connection to this?
Well, I wanted to say a few words from a personal standpoint about the Gemini 9 crew. Charlie Bassett was the second in command on that flight with Elliot C. Charlie's widow went to high school with me, went to college with my wife, and we've been friends for a long time. I am the godfather to Charlie's kids, and Charlie is the godfather to my kids. So we've had a long personal relation. I remember many times when Charlie was going through a test pilot or aerospace research pilot school at Edwards, and I was working at another company called Lockheed, and we would go up and visit the Bassett family in the base housing at Edwards, and Charlie would invariably have a quick dinner and immediately go back to the study and continue his studies. He was extremely dedicated to wanted to do. His dad was an Air Force colonel from the 1930s, and he's been very heavy as an airplane pilot and engineer all his life. On the day of the accident, I was up at Edwards Air Force Base doing some work for the Lockheed Skunk Works. And I got a call from my wife, which is very rare because basically I was normally not available by telephone. And she told me about the accident. I immediately went home, and that night we flew to Houston. We got down there, and there was a lot of tears going on between everybody. But about 2 days later, Mr. Mack very generously donated his Jetstar to take my wife and I and Tom Stafford and astronaut Gene Cernan to the full military honors burial at Arlington National Cemetery. I had a lot of talking with Tom Stafford about the accident. They started out from Houston, a flight of 2 T-38s. C and Bassett were in the lead airplane, and Stafford and Cernan were flying formation with them. They got here, and as you heard, the weather was very bad. And Tom is a highly experienced Air Force jet fighter pilot. And he told me that in the jet penetration they were making into the St. Louis area, Elliott C was so rough on the controls that Stafford fell off his wing and wound up having to separate into 2 flights, and he had to climb back up on top and make his own separate instrument approach. As C and Bassett came in for the landing, they were landing on runway 12 at Lambert Field, and they were extremely high and not in a position to land. And when they broke out, they could not get it down on that runway, and they stayed below the weather and bent it around to land on runway 24. And that would have had to be a fairly tight circling turn at very low altitude. And what do they teach you in pilot training 101 is if you're in a bank, your stall speed increases quite a bit. And they apparently stalled the airplane and fell into the building. I understand it hit the building housing the Gemini IX spacecraft, and they both perished in the accident. Tom and Gene came in and landed later on, had no idea that the accident had occurred as they taxied in to the Mack ramp. In thinking about what might have been as far as shuffling of crews and everything else, I would like to think that Gene Cernan was one of the guys who landed, who did walk on the moon, that maybe my friend Charlie would have had his slot and he might have walked on the moon, as it turned out. At the time of this accident, NASA had a very loose pilot instrument qualifications and monitoring program. It was sort of assumed that everybody was these high-class, best of the all-American pilots, all test pilots, and highly experienced, and they were not monitored very carefully as to their instrument proficiency. Following this accident, NASA pretty much overhauled all their instrument training. They hired some instructor pilots to come in and do periodic instrument training, instrument checks, and so on to tighten up on all of that. But it was a very unfortunate accident, and should not have happened at all. I think part of the incident as it occurred was the fact that C, who had had a previous flight in space, was the commander of that flight. It was a pilot in command, and Charlie, sitting in the back seat, was the co-pilot. Should have obviously spoken up. As we learned in the airlines later on about crew resource management, it's a very fatal mistake to sit there and let the other guy do something that turns out to be illegal or ill-advised. All of us certainly wish that Charlie would have spoken up. Maybe he did, I don't know, but that was an accident that surely not occurred. Anyway, thank you very much for making a few personal comments here.
this right here is our history site that is on the Boeing web. This is our public website. You reach it at boeing.com. Okay, and if you click on, when you come to the website, it'll be on mainly the home page, but if you click this 100, they'll bring you to our history site. And Rich, if you can scroll down, keep going down. So Age of Aerospace is a documentary that we helped sponsor that is airing on the Science Channel. So encourage you to, if you have on the Science Channel, to go ahead and watch that. Very well done. So it's also airing on the Discovery Channel after it airs on the Science Channel. What, later that week, or is it a little bit of overlay? Okay, so if you have Discovery Channel, then you also have an opportunity to catch that as well. There's a bit of our bits of advertising from our past. Some of what I mentioned before is taken from our archives. Here's this, what I mentioned, your story is our story. So if you click on the share your Boeing stories link, if you click on that, that opens up another page. I hope. Okay, share your story. So go ahead and scroll down, Rich, if you could. So you might have to click on that. Just kind of asks you for some basic information, and then you'll see here kind of a big white box below that, kind of an open field for you to just kind of type your story. You can submit photographs if you'd like as well as part of that story too. And there's another part of this page as well where you can look at some of the stories that have already been submitted. And they're coming from a wonderful wide range of people. Again, not just people who may have worked at Boeing or one of our heritage companies, but people who may have known other people or flown airplanes or worked on satellites or what it happens to be. Okay, so that basically wraps up my talk for this evening. Thank you for listening so attentively. And we had good weather that we have such a nice turnout this evening. Any questions at all? Yes. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to work on some sort of remembrance for those astronauts. The final form of that's taken has not really been finalized yet, but we hope to make that decision very soon here, and yet this year to have some sort of remembrance for them. Yes?
The building, the Galvez building that they struck, they injured on the ground.
So there were no serious injuries from what I've read. There was some damage to the building itself that took place. And if there was anybody, the whole match team that was here, yes, Dan?
Right here, too.
Outstanding.
First in, yeah.
one of them not necessarily absorbed in, but part of the history of the early days of what became North American. Let me see, the Litter Joyce and Fokker. Fokker was producing in this country, and then it became for a short time Fokker Atlantic, Atlantic General, and then General Aircraft.
Yeah, it was part of that.
Yes,
Young Aviation.
yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Coach over here. Is linked to the aviation league on the Boeing site?
Yes, it should be on that, in that same history.
Whatever happened to Boeing's first department in Westerville?
So he lost interest pretty quick. They built that one airplane.
Yeah.
So Westervelt, Boeing's original partner, after they built that one airplane, he was kind of a sportsman type of person. He kind of quickly got interested in wanting to do this airplane thing and did the airplane thing, and pretty quickly broke off and did something else. So that's when Boeing changed the name of the company. It was the Boeing and Westervelt company. It was one company after that.
Boeing has competition right now.
What's that?
Boeing has competition in space right now.
Oh yeah, we've got a lot of competition.
Have they got competition?
We don't need
Boeing, how are they reacting to that?
Well, Boeing has always had competition, one form or another, and we still do today. And a lot of our founders and a lot of the folks that work for them basically took the approach of saying, one way to deal with competitors is to do the best possible research, the best possible design yourselves, right? And there are competitors that are out there. Back when Boeing was competing against Douglas, Donald was competing against Douglas, North America, and everything else. Yeah, they saw what they were doing. What can we do, right? What can we do in our own house to do the best we possibly can? But, yes.
We're in the present. Maybe I missed it, but who's the rollout customer for 737 MAX?
Is it Southwest? Okay.
Southwest.
Yeah. Obviously, they're a major customer. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Future mission to Mars is going to be
Well, I don't. Let's see. The future mission to Mars has got all kinds of different forms and components. I don't know really how nailed down that is. I don't know a whole lot about it, other than we are building the SLS, the Space Launch System. Major pieces of that, at least, right? So, so from that perspective, we're involved with the rocket. Yeah, in New Orleans. Yes, that's part of our commercial space, commercial crew.
We tested at the Winslow on two variations of launch pad interface to the rocket. Yeah, I was involved in that a little bit.
We do a lot of stuff in that one tunnel. That's just part of it.
Okay, anyone else? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's basically it.
Well, we hope that's just the beginning.
But for now, yeah, you're right. The future holds a lot of promise, of course. But back in the 1970s, the DC-10 wing was parts of the DC-10 wing least it's that. And there's obviously there's a difference between commercial airplane parts and military airplane parts, especially when it comes to size. So we're getting used to much larger components and pieces as a result of that. So
So we're also in the laboratories over at 102, we're doing some testing of commercial things like coupon testing of structures, aerostructures and things like that. So we're doing a lot of that in 102, just all sorts of stuff like that. Wind tunnel stuff. And then, yeah. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Is we're able to now shop jobs, lab jobs out to other facilities, and they're able to shop them to us as well. If we don't have the capability internally here, then we shop them out to Seattle, over Mesa, and they can do the same to us.
so if you're familiar with the tooling center, which is on Frost Avenue, okay, that building there's a significant expansion that building has taken place, and that's where all that is going to happen. Any other questions?
Is that happening? The building here was having wing tower, or is that the next?
The X. Yeah, we're not involved in the current. This is for the X.
It'll be the whole next wing.
No, what we're doing is the surfaces. The actual wing assembly itself is being done in Seattle, up in Everett. They're building a new facility up there for that as well. Yes, sir.
I had a question about 7.3 production. I did a little research a couple years ago, and I believe by 2017 you're projected to get 52 out a month in Seattle, and I believe that's through employee innovation teams that they work on trying to shave off time here and there to get a 7.3 through. I was wondering if there's any sort of similar program for employee innovation that might happen here in St. Louis. I know Space Fence Security is here. Any info on that?
So, yeah, so you had mentioned that 737 production is going to ramp up to 50 plus airplanes a month, which is, that still boggles my mind. You know, I know the F4 I think peaked at what, 70 something a month? 72 a month, back in what, 60, late 60s maybe? Okay, so obviously, you know, we don't see anything like that here in St. Louis today. So yeah, there's a lot of activity that they're doing in terms of you know, it's always about what can you do to get your line, you know, honed, you know, lean is a very big part of that. But you know, that's not just centered on commercial production. I mean, that's a very much part of how we build airplanes here in St. Louis as well. And that's been a part of our culture for, gosh, how many years? A lot. You know there's you know, in the lean jargon, there's that term Kaizen, right, which means continuous improvement. Just because we've set something up and it's working really well, we just don't kind of put up our hands and say we're done, right? What can we do to continuously improve kind of what we're doing? And it goes back to the spirit of, you know, these four guys that started. These guys just didn't sit back and say, okay, well, we did it. We're done. Well, we've built Westervelt's airplane. We're done. Right? So, absolutely.
7 years ago when I was working on PA, we went up to tour the factory in Renton, and a fuselage comes from Spirit on the trailer or on the train. 9 days later, it would spit out an airplane at the other end of the factory. That's 7 years ago when they were making 30 plus airplanes, and now they're going to 52. It's crazy. It's amazing to watch that.
That brings up a good question, right? Will the tubes still be produced in Wichita and shipped?
Yeah, they come up on the train. The wings are built in Renton. Tails come from, I think, Korea. Some of the tails. Yeah, they come from international places. Good watch the videos on YouTube of Boeing putting one together, the gear going up and down. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Good questions.
Going once, going twice. Bing. Okay. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you.